Neil Armstrong moved to Cincinnati in 1972, 3 years after he made that historic journey.
How did your dad take in the celebratory nature of what he did?
I don't think that it changed him. My father always wanted the accolades.
Neil Armstrong's moonwalk was one of the most iconic moments in history. His words, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind," were heard by people everywhere, and they became a symbol of human achievement. That day marked one of the greatest accomplishments in space exploration and made Armstrong a global icon. But what if there was more to Neil Armstrong than we ever knew? Recently, his family revealed some surprising secrets about him. For years, Neil Armstrong kept many parts of his life private, choosing to stay out of the spotlight as much as possible after his historic journey to the moon. However, his wife has come forward with some personal stories that shed light on a side of Neil Armstrong that the public never saw. So, what could Armstrong have hidden from the world? Join us as we discuss this and more than a man on the moon. On July 20th, 1969, when Neil Armstrong descended the ladder of the Apollo 11 lunar module and uttered the immortal words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," the entire world held its breath. It was a moment of unparalleled significance in human history. The first human footprints on the moon were etched into not just the lunar surface, but the collective memory of humanity. That day marked a victory in the space race, a tense competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. However, this achievement wasn't just a win for the United States. It was a milestone for all of humanity, a proof that we could reach beyond our planet. The pressure and anticipation leading up to that moment were immense. There were countless calculations, preparations, and simulations that Armstrong and the Apollo 11 team had to go through before that historic day. There were risks too, unknown factors about the moon's surface, the reliability of the equipment, and the sheer uncertainty of venturing into space. Armstrong was aware of these risks, but he approached them with a calm confidence that defined his character. The landing itself was not without tension. As the lunar module approached the surface, alarms blared, and fuel levels ran dangerously low. Armstrong had to manually steer the module to a safer spot to land, which required quick thinking and absolute composure. He managed it with the calm precision that would become legendary, and the rest, as they say, is history. But as monumental as this achievement was, Armstrong's life afterward wasn't defined solely by that one moment. After the moon landing, Armstrong didn't seek out the fame that could have easily followed him. Instead, he returned to a quieter life. He took up a teaching position at the University of Cincinnati in 1971. There, he taught aerospace engineering to students who must have been in awe of the man who had walked on the moon. But Armstrong didn't see himself as a celebrity. He saw himself as an engineer, and that's how he approached teaching, sharing the knowledge and skills he had accumulated throughout his career. Armstrong's reluctance to bask in the limelight added to his mystique. While many people would have used their fame for endorsements, interviews, and public appearances, Armstrong chose to stay out of the spotlight as much as possible. He kept a low profile, which only seemed to make him more admired. People saw him as a symbol of quiet strength and integrity, someone who did his duty and didn't seek recognition for it. Unveiling the mysteries. However, even icons have their secrets. Armstrong was known for his reserved nature, but some found it curious just how tight-lipped he remained about certain aspects of his life, especially his experience on the moon. Over the years, conspiracy theories and rumors swirled around his lunar mission and his actions afterward. Some people wondered if Armstrong had seen something on the moon that he never revealed to the public. Others speculated that his reserved nature was a cover for deeper mysteries. Though Armstrong never publicly addressed these rumors, questions continued to linger. Did something happen on the moon that he chose to keep private? Was there a reason for his quiet demeanor? Armstrong carried these questions with him until his death in 2012. It wasn't until after he passed that some of these mysteries began to unravel, at least partially. After his death, Armstrong's first wife, Janet, who had always respected his privacy, began to share small details about his life that had previously remained hidden. For years, Janet had stood by Armstrong's side, supporting him through the pressures of his career and the weight of his fame. She had also respected his wish to keep certain things private, but after his passing, She felt it was time to reveal some of the truths that Armstrong had kept close to his heart. One of the revelations that came out after his death was that Armstrong had been carrying physical mementos from his time on the moon for years. Among these items were pieces of the lunar module and other artifacts from the mission, keepsakes that were deeply personal to him. These items were never shown to the public and remained with him until his final days. This revelation suggested that Armstrong's connection to his time on the moon went far deeper than he ever let on. It was more than just a professional accomplishment for him. It was something personal, something sacred that he chose to guard quietly. Janet's revelations also hinted at the emotional and psychological toll the moon landing had on Armstrong. While he maintained a calm exterior, those closest to him knew that the experience had left an indelible mark on him. The moon landing wasn't just a mission for Armstrong. It was a defining moment that shaped his life in ways that perhaps even he couldn't fully express. His quiet strength and enigmatic silence, which the world had come to see as part of his personality, may have been his way of protecting the deep emotions and memories connected to that historic day. As more stories about Armstrong's life emerged, it became clear that the man behind the icon was far more complex than the public persona he had cultivated. The quiet, reserved figure that the world saw was also a man who had experienced one of the most extraordinary events in human history, an event that changed him in ways that only he truly understood. While the full extent of his experiences on the moon may never be known, the glimpses that have come to light reveal a man who carried the weight of history with grace and humility. These revelations brought Armstrong's life into sharper focus, showing us that even though he became a global icon, he remained deeply human, a man who experienced joy, pain, triumph, and mystery, just like anyone else. His legacy, though centered on his historic achievement, was also about the quiet strength and integrity with which he lived his life. Now, you might be thinking, how does one train for such a mission? Let's find out. Training for the impossible. The Apollo 11 mission was the result of many years of intense training and preparation by NASA and the astronauts involved. It was not something that happened overnight, but rather the result of a long and difficult process that took a lot of effort, teamwork, and careful planning. The journey that led to that unforgettable day in July of 1969 was filled with countless hours of hard work. The astronauts had to push their bodies and minds to the limit. They had to endure many challenges, both physical and mental, that most people could hardly imagine. The stakes were incredibly high. Failure simply wasn't an option. NASA had to make sure that the astronauts were ready for any situation, no matter how unlikely it seemed. Every possible scenario was thought about and prepared for, whether it involved technical issues, emergency situations, or unexpected obstacles. The Apollo mission demanded a completely new level of skill and endurance from the astronauts, pushing them in ways that hadn't been done before. It wasn't just about getting to the moon. It was about making sure everything was ready for the challenges that came with it. Mastering the moon's gravity. One of the hardest parts of the training was getting ready to walk on the moon's surface. Walking on the moon was not like walking on Earth. The moon's gravity is only 1/6 of Earth's gravity. This means that every step would feel different, almost like bouncing or gliding rather than regular walking. Moving on the moon could be awkward, and astronauts had to adjust to a whole new way of using their bodies. This made things more complicated because the astronauts would also be wearing heavy, bulky spacesuits that restricted their movement. To prepare for this, Neil Armstrong and the other astronauts spent long hours in special training facilities. These facilities were designed to simulate or copy the moon's low-gravity environment. Armstrong practiced walking, running, and even falling in a way that would help him keep his balance on the moon. He was strapped to wires that helped reduce the pull of Earth's gravity, so it felt more like he was moving on the moon. It wasn't easy. The spacesuit, though designed to protect them in space, was large and uncomfortable. Armstrong had to figure out how to maneuver in it, which took a lot of practice. It was all about making sure he was fully prepared for the strange and unfamiliar conditions he would face on the moon. Along with the physical training, the astronauts had to be ready for the mental challenges of going to the moon. The Apollo 11 mission would take them far away from Earth, over 200,000 miles away. That distance would make them feel extremely isolated. There would be moments when the astronauts were completely cut off from everything they knew, with nothing but the dark, cold emptiness of space around them. For some, the idea of being so far from home might be overwhelming. The astronauts had to be mentally strong enough to handle this. NASA had a training program that wasn't just about the physical side of things. They also focused on the mental side. The astronauts went through rigorous psychological tests to see how they would cope with stress, isolation, and the pressure of space travel. Armstrong and his crew faced simulations that forced them to stay calm and make smart decisions, even when everything seemed to be going wrong. One of the toughest parts of the training was the simulation of the lunar landing. This exercise was so real that it sometimes felt like the actual mission. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had to sit inside a life-size replica of the lunar module, the spacecraft they would use to land on the moon. During this exercise, things didn't always go as planned. NASA purposely made things difficult, throwing curveballs to see how the astronauts would react. In one scenario, the computer that controlled the descent to the moon's surface broke down. Armstrong had to take control of the lunar module by hand. He had only seconds to react. The fuel was running low, and there wasn't much time to figure out where to land. Armstrong stayed calm under pressure. He found a safe spot to land the module, communicated with mission control, and brought the simulation to a successful end. This exercise turned out to be a close reflection of what really happened during the Apollo 11 mission. When Armstrong landed the lunar module on the moon, he faced many of the same problems that he had practiced in the simulation. Thanks to his training, he knew what to do. Survival of the fittest. Survival training was another big part of getting ready. NASA understood that anything could go wrong at any time, and the astronauts had to be able to survive in extreme environments. Armstrong and the other astronauts went through tough survival training. They had to learn how to take care of themselves in deserts, jungles, and even in the middle of the ocean. They had to figure out how to live with very little. One of the hardest parts was when Armstrong was dropped into a remote desert with only a small survival kit. His job was to find his way back to civilization on his own. His training also included learning how to use the scientific instruments he would need on the moon. He spent a lot of time practicing how to carefully collect and label rock and soil samples. He also had to get used to working with cameras and other equipment in space. The conditions were tough, but he needed to be ready for it. One of the hardest things Armstrong had to learn was how to work smoothly with the other astronauts. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins trained together for months. They practiced every single part of the mission. They worked on docking the lunar module, which had to be done just right. They also rehearsed the timing needed to land on the moon. Over time, they developed a strong sense of trust in each other. They knew that their lives depended on everyone's skills and decisions. As the mission date got closer, Armstrong's training became even more intense. He understood that once they launched, there was no room for mistakes. Every part of the mission had to be done perfectly. By the time they stood on the launch pad at Cape Kennedy, Armstrong and his crew were as ready as anyone could be. Many people have wondered what made Neil Armstrong so successful. His family has shared that it wasn't just the training that made him great. It was the kind of person he was. Armstrong had quiet confidence. He always worked hard to be the best he could be. He never seemed to get rattled, even under pressure. These qualities helped him not only become the first man on the moon, but also a symbol of what people can achieve when they give their best. So, what has his family said about him and his time up on the moon? His family's reflections. Neil Armstrong's story isn't just about his accomplishments. It's also about the kind of person he was. His family's memories remind us that his character was just as important as his achievements. The moon landing was a huge success, but it also carried a lot of hidden challenges. On July 20th, 1969, people all over the world held their breath. The Apollo 11 lunar module, called Eagle, was getting ready to land on the moon. The mission had gone smoothly so far, but now it was reaching the most critical part. Billions of people were glued to their TVs, waiting for this moment in history. As Eagle got closer to the surface, things got complicated. Armstrong and Aldrin faced technical problems that could have ended the mission. The computer guiding their descent started showing a 1202 error, which meant it was overloaded with information. For a few tense moments, it looked like the mission might have to be called off. Back at NASA's Mission Control in Houston, engineers were trying to figure out what was wrong and how to help. Meanwhile, Armstrong stayed calm, just like he always did. With the mission on the line, he decided to take control of the lunar module himself. The descent didn't go as planned. The spot they were supposed to land on was covered in big rocks and craters, making it too dangerous to touch down. Armstrong had to steer Eagle away from that area and find a safer place to land. But time was running out, and so was their fuel. With less than 30 seconds of fuel left, Armstrong finally spotted a flat area. He carefully brought Eagle down and landed. The tension broke when Armstrong's voice came over the radio. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." This was a moment the world would never forget. Armstrong climbed down the ladder of the lunar module, and when his left boot touched the moon's surface, he said the famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." It was a huge success. Not just for the Apollo program, but for the human spirit as well. While everyone was watching Armstrong and Aldrin explore the moon, gathering rock samples and placing the American flag, there were parts of the mission that weren't shown to the public. Hidden mysteries and tributes. Hidden from the public were challenges, strange events, and possible experiences that Neil Armstrong and others decided not to share. These secrets later sparked rumors and conspiracy theories. People started wondering if the moon landing was more than just a big step for science and technology. One of the most touching moments from the Apollo 11 mission was never shared publicly by Armstrong or written down officially. In the biography titled First Man by James R. Hansen, which inspired the movie, it was suggested that Armstrong might have taken something very personal to the moon. It was in memory of his daughter Karen, who had passed away from a brain tumor in the year 1962. Since Armstrong's first wife, Janet, was closely involved with the filmmakers, many believed that this item was a quiet tribute to their daughter. This act was never recorded or spoken about in public. It remained one of Armstrong's most personal secrets. Even while making history as the first man on the moon, Armstrong was also a grieving father. This moment showed how he tried to honor his daughter's memory in a truly special way. What we've always thought about Armstrong, that he was a man of great achievement but also deeply private, was confirmed by those closest to him. His family's recent revelations show that his legacy is not just about his incredible accomplishments. It's also about the secrets he carried with him until the end. However, Armstrong's deep commitment to his work came at a cost to his personal life. After losing their daughter Karen, he became even more focused on his work. As the space program demanded more of his time, he drifted further away from his family. His wife Janet ended up managing their household and raising their two sons, Rick and Mark, mostly on her own. Even though there was distance between them, his family never spoke badly about him. They understood the enormous responsibility he had. But the strain on their marriage became too much, leading to their separation and eventual divorce in the year 1994. These recent insights from his family confirm what many people had long believed. Armstrong's greatness wasn't just about what he did in public. It was also about the tough personal struggles and choices he faced throughout his life. Now, beneath the surface of this historic event, there have been many rumors and theories that have persisted for decades about what Neil Armstrong and his crew might have encountered during their time on the lunar surface. The secrets of the moon. These stories, often called conspiracy theories, suggest that the astronauts might have seen or encountered strange things that were never shared with the public. One of the most talked about rumors is the idea that Armstrong and his fellow astronauts saw unidentified flying objects on the moon. Some stories say that right after the lunar module landed, Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin saw strange lights or objects near a crater. These objects, described as either hovering or staying still, did not look like anything the astronauts had expected to see. This sighting reportedly happened during a 2-minute period when the live broadcast from the lunar module was suddenly cut off. This blackout has only added fuel to the speculation. According to some stories, Armstrong switched to a secure communication channel that the public could not hear. He is said to have sent a coded message to NASA's mission control, saying, "They're here. They're parked on the side of the crater. They're watching us." This message has never been officially confirmed, but it has become one of the most talked about pieces of evidence in the debate about whether extraterrestrial life exists and if it could be present on the moon. The idea that Armstrong and Aldrin might have encountered something extraordinary, something not from Earth, has fascinated people for years and led to many theories and discussions. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the live transmission was cut off for exactly 2 minutes during the supposed sighting. NASA has officially explained this as a technical glitch. Given the complexity of the mission, this kind of interruption was not unheard of. However, skeptics believe this was a cover-up to prevent the public from hearing or seeing something that could not be easily explained. The idea that NASA might have intentionally interrupted the broadcast to keep certain information secret has kept these conspiracy theories alive. Adding to this belief are reports of similar incidents during other Apollo missions. For example, during the Apollo 8 mission in December of 1968, which orbited the moon, there was a 45-minute communication blackout while the spacecraft was on the far side of the moon. During this time, the astronauts reportedly saw strange lights on the lunar surface. They described the lights as looking like campfires. NASA later suggested that the lights might have been caused by debris from the spacecraft. However, the fact that these sightings happened during a communication blackout has only made people more suspicious that something mysterious could have been happening. Theories of alien encounters during Apollo 11. When it comes to Apollo 11, the theories about alien encounters go beyond just seeing UFOs. Some people think that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin might have found real evidence of extraterrestrial life or advanced technology on the moon. These theories suggest that the astronauts could have stumbled upon ancient structures or artifacts. These might have been left by an advanced civilization that once lived on the moon or used it as a base. Fans of this theory point to the astronauts' careful collection of rock samples and their detailed notes about the lunar surface. They believe that this meticulous work was not just about collecting rocks, but about searching for something extraordinary. One of the more exciting claims is that Armstrong and Aldrin saw a huge alien spacecraft on the moon. Some stories say this spacecraft was parked near the edge of a crater and was massive, unlike anything the astronauts had ever seen. The idea that the moon could be a place for alien technology or a base for extraterrestrial beings has been a popular theme in science fiction, but some people think it might have a bit of truth to it. Supporters of this idea argue that the astronauts' actions after their mission, like Armstrong's need for more privacy, could be because they saw something so amazing that it changed their view of life and their place in the universe. Another interesting theory is that the moon might actually have alien life forms or be a spot for ongoing extraterrestrial activity. There have been reports of strange things happening during other Apollo missions, like lights moving across the lunar surface or unusual sounds. Even though these events were not widely publicized, they have led some people to believe that the moon might not be as empty as it seems. According to this belief, Armstrong and his crew could have been the first humans to see signs of an alien presence on the moon. Neil Armstrong passed away on August 25, 2012. The world grieved for the man who took humanity's first steps on the moon. Armstrong was known for his courage, innovation, and humility. Even after his death, he remained a figure of great interest. In the years leading up to his death, various theories about Armstrong and his mission stirred curiosity. Although none of these theories have been officially confirmed, they continue to fascinate UFO enthusiasts, researchers, and the general public. Recently, Declassified government documents related to UFO sightings and unexplained events have rekindled interest in these theories. Some of these documents hint that the US government has been aware of and has investigated such phenomena for decades. Armstrong's hesitation to discuss certain aspects of his mission, along with new revelations from his family, only deepened the mystery. After his return to Earth, his behavior and the eventual discovery of his hidden artifacts added layers to the intrigue. After Armstrong's death, his wife Carol found something unexpected. While sorting through his belongings, she came across a simple white cloth bag hidden in a closet. At first glance, the bag seemed ordinary, but it held items that piqued her interest. Inside were various pieces of equipment from the Apollo 11 mission. There was a waist tether, utility lights, an emergency wrench, and most notably, a data acquisition camera. These were not just random objects. They were crucial tools that had played a key role in the success of the moon landing. Armstrong's legacy and the hidden artifacts. When these artifacts were discovered, it was quite surprising for a few reasons. First, there was no official NASA record of them. This made people wonder why Neil Armstrong had kept them. Carol knew Neil wasn't one for sentimental items or keepsakes, and NASA had strict rules about returning all equipment from space missions. The fact that these items stayed with Armstrong hinted that he had a personal connection to them. These tools, once crucial for his survival on the moon, had turned into keepsakes, symbols of an experience only he truly understood and never shared with anyone, not even his wife. Carol thought about this discovery for a while before deciding to go public. She felt it was important to share them and confirm what many had suspected. Neil Armstrong kept these items because they were tied to a significant and personal part of his mission. The value of these artifacts goes beyond just their historical importance. They offer a peek into Armstrong's thoughts and his strong bond with the Apollo 11 mission. By keeping these items, Armstrong might have been holding on to a piece of his most important moment. The fact that he never talked about them, even with his closest family, adds to the mystery of his character. This discovery also makes us wonder what else Armstrong might have kept hidden. Was there more to his moon journey than he ever let on? Could these objects be part of a larger story that Armstrong kept to himself? We might never know the full story, but the presence of these artifacts suggests that Armstrong's connection to his moon mission was more personal and complex than the public ever realized. Now it's time for you to share. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching, fam. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want more fascinating content like this. While you're still here, click the video on your screen to see more interesting content like this one.